Okay, you ready, Charlie?
Okay, well, welcome to the Rotary Club of Kerrville. Please check into, using your cell phone, check into your Facebook page and share it with a post. Let everyone know you're attending today. And we will start out with the invocation provided by David Rittenhouse.
If you'd all bow your heads, please. And I noticed that I'm getting internet unstable, so I apologize if you lose me. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come together in these challenging times. Please bless our members and their families, especially those that have special issues at this time. We also ask that you be especially mindful of and helping of those members of our community who are burdened. We are thinking especially at this time of our first responders and our healthcare workers. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, David. If you will, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you take yourselves off mute here.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic,
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and
justice for all.
All right, mute yourselves
Right.
again.
You can see why we can't sing songs.
No, we do have two guests with us today. Paul Hutchins. Paul, can you tell us a little bit about yourself or where you're from?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I've gotten to join y'all once or twice before, even in an in-person meeting, and then Janelle sent me the link and invited me to join y'all a couple times as well. I'm a member of the Fredericksburg Nimitz Evening Rotary Club, but I have a independent insurance agency here in town. I was a State Farm agent in Fredericksburg previously, but I have an office here in town now in Kerrville, so I'm going to be more involved in stuff here in town, and great group of people, so I'm happy to be able to visit in with y'all and stop by as well.
Great. We remember having you with us before, and
Yes,
thanks
sir.
for being with us today.
Yes, sir.
Richard
Thanks for having
Boland,
me.
you want to tell us a little about yourself, please, sir?
Hi, everybody. Richard Boland. I recently started with 72 Degrees as a comfort advisor. Brad Schneider's a longtime member of the Fredericksburg chapter of Rotary. Suggested that I join up with you guys, help the community out. My wife is an emergency room nurse, so we're always in those kind of events. I own a small oil field business, which has kept me out of town for about 300 days a year up until this point with COVID hit. So now I'm home and I'm looking to help the community, and I look forward to meeting all of you. And 72 Degrees will have a team at your upcoming golf tournament, and I think we're also sponsoring one of the first responder teams as well. So I look forward to meeting all of you there.
Very well. Well, welcome to both of you. We're glad you're with us today.
Thank you.
Before we
Thanks,
do
Matt.
introduce our guest speaker, I want to reiterate the comment that Christy made. The Rotary International President Mark Maloney is speaking at the San Antonio Rotary Club right now, and that presentation will be available to us at a later time so that we can see that too. I got a little bit of a shock when I first saw that. Rotary uses all the initials and what have you. It said R.I.P. Mark Maloney. I thought maybe he'd passed away. So glad it was just Rotary International President and not rest in peace. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to our speaker today, and Clinton Morris will introduce today's guest speaker.
Thank you very much, President Charlie. And as a preface to our speaker and his introduction, I thought all of you would like to know that in the United States today, there are 1,350,000 lawyers. And 70% of the world's lawyers live in the United States. So with that, our speaker today thought it might be a good idea to improve the standing of lawyers in our country. I know President Charlie last week said we're going to have a speaker today to speak on legal ethics, if there is such a thing. So I think it's high time that we have a truly dignified senior member of the Texas Bar speak to us on that subject. He grew up in Houston, He went to Lamar High School. He was a star football player there. He was recruited to play at the University of Texas. He graduated from there in 1961. He graduated from Texas Law School in 1963. And that means he's been practicing law in Texas for 57 years. He has been exclusively a trial lawyer and a litigator throughout his career, and has tried cases primarily in the oil and gas area, but has tried almost every case that you can imagine, from environmental to airplane crashes to personal injury. So with that, I'd like to ask all of you to give a warm Rotary online welcome to my good friend Harold Felt, who will talk to us about legal ethics of a trial lawyer and modern legal advertising. So Harold, here you are.
Well, thank you so much. I first of all want to evidence that you can't always trust a trial lawyer. Clint asked me if I would make this talk in all places the Hunt store. And I said, sure, I'll always talk. And he said, well, give me a subject. Where in the world I got the ethics of a trial lawyer, which is terribly dangerous, I have no idea, but that's what I said. So I'm going to stray a little bit from the announced subject. And what I'm really going to talk about, and I know you're going to be terribly disappointed that I'm bouncing off of ethics, is I'm going to talk about the lessons learned by a trial lawyer, Harold Felt, through the years of trying cases concerning the ethics, the conduct, and the character of trial juries, and what I've learned about our jury system and the people that sit and sort out our litigation. It's not going to be at all some technical presentation concerning the statutes or the rules of the Bar Association or rules of ethics of different honor societies. And I'm going to start after those initial thoughts by telling you a little bit about who I am and why I have a basis to make these remarks. As Clint said, I've been practicing law for 57 years. This sounds like I'm bragging, and I probably am, because I'm very proud of what I've done, the profession I've followed. I've tried cases or been in courthouses. I once tried to count them, so I'm not sure of this, in over 70 counties in Texas. I've tried cases from El Paso to Beaumont, from Amarillo to Brownsville. I've appeared in the federal court in downtown New Orleans, appeared in Georgia, appeared in Kansas, tried cases, a case, which was a wonderful experience, in Kennemer, Wyoming. As an aside, that's where the first J.P. Penney store was. And as I approached the courthouse, it was a great thing to see the eagles fly. So I have been around the country, and I've been exposed to probably about as many juries as a lawyer can have the opportunity to stand before. I can't help, and I apologize one time and I won't do it again, but stray in, like all trial lawyers do, to a few war stories. So just bear with me. To become a trial lawyer, I learned by jumping in the fire and having some great, talented, wonderful, successful trial lawyers to try my lawsuits against. And one thing I can say is I won a few, but I also lost a few. I always say that ever talk to a trial lawyer who tells you he's never lost a case, he's either not tried many cases or he's not telling the truth. The lawyers that I tried cases with and the lawyers that raised me, I can honestly say they were some wonderful characters. And I was going to just because I enjoy the stories and I enjoy telling them, tell about a few. One of them was a very famous trial lawyer. You got to understand, I'm getting to be an old guy. So my mentors mainly are dead. But I used to try lawsuits in West Texas against a guy that I don't think he would be offended if I said from time to time he was a scoundrel. But having said that, while we fussed and fought, we got along just fine most of the time. And to give you an idea of the sort of character he was, this is liable to throw me off track and lose credibility. I like to read about people's lives in obituary. And this particular guy's obituary tells a lot about him. The obituary said, Warren Burnett, the lawyer, died while having his morning beer in Fort Davis, Texas. That captures him as a character. The last time I ever saw him after we had fussed and fought and been competitors for years was in a Southwest Airlines waiting room, and I'd left Midland, and I yelled across the waiting room. I said, Warren, my word, it's so good to see you. I can't remember how long it's been, but it's been a long, long time. And his reply was simply, thank God. So, we're talking about a character. I also love to tell a story about one of my mentors who ran the trial section and became a fine lawyer with Vincent and Elkins in Houston, where I worked for many years. And his name was Jim McCartney. And he does not like me repeating this story, but McCartney, who was very talented, liked to tell about his first years of practicing law. And he was called by a senior member for his first task to go to the courthouse and change the person who took care of his yard and did all sorts of errands for him, to change his name. And the fellow who wanted his name changed because his name was Willie B.O. And so McCartney had never been in front of a judge, had never had the opportunity to change a name. He was scared to death. He went to the courthouse. The judge said, I don't have time for all of this. Just fill out the form and hurry up. So McCartney did, and scared to death and nervous, went back to the office, and my goodness, he figured out he'd made a mistake on which line to fill out what, and he had actually changed his name from Jim McCartney to Willie B.O., which was a crisis, of course. Now, back to the point that I want to make, and it's very important to me to make this point, because we have a lot of what I think are diversions and conflict that, frankly, I just don't care for. But one thing I can say about the Americans and the American public that I've dealt with in all these cases that I've tried all around the country is that the character, the honesty, the ethics of people on American juries is outstanding. And if I make no other point today, I want to make the point that trials are really in front of juries are many tests concerning what people are all about. And you have all sorts of people on the jury, as I've told you. I've strayed from Georgia to Kansas to New Mexico, but they're all American citizens. And I can say that whether I always agreed with them, I always felt that they were trying to do the right thing. And we're talking about farmers in Georgia. We're talking about fishermen in New Orleans. We're talking about people from all walks of life, all levels of education, all ages. And they bring to the courthouse their innermost thoughts, which are formed by their experiences in life. Some of them have had all sorts of struggles and difficult lives. But I circle back and say that my experience has been that they try to learn the lessons of the trial of the case. Regardless of what the facts are, and this is my observation again of an old guy that has points that he thinks are important, but a lawyer that tries lawsuits does not try a lawsuit very long before he learns, regardless of what the facts are, what a jury wants to know is whether they can trust your case, whether or not you have built a relationship with them where they know that you, the lawyer, and your witnesses are trying to be straight and are not trying to mislead them. And they're not on cross-examination going to get caught in lies and untruths. And lawyers don't make facts. The facts are made before the case ever occurs. So, you know, sometimes you're not going to win. You're not going to get a victory in the sense that you lose no money if you're a defense lawyer. In those cases, you have to be sure that you admit your weaknesses and you tell the truth and just cut your losses. And don't ever, ever be tempted to try to push the facts, because the greatest danger in a bad result is where a jury gets mad at the trial lawyer, gets mad at the case, gets mad at the witnesses. And if that happens, a jury, in my view, well, not in my view, I'll say this, they will punish you. The award will not only be against you, it'll be bad. So you must build a relationship with the lawyer, and you must tell your witnesses, stop, listen, understand the question, and then absolutely for sure answer that question and tell the truth. And that's just not meandering. That's so important to the outcome. And I'll give you an example. I was, years ago, I was a young lawyer and trying a case against a very good personal injury lawyer on the other side. And my client had gone to pick her child up at school. And as she pulled into the line to pick her child up, she leaned over and reached down under the passenger seat to get a Kleenex and rear-ended the car in front of her. And she was a wonderfully nice lady. And I said, now let me tell you, he's going to jump on you for what happened. And I know it was an accident, but just tell the truth and just answer his question. You don't have to make a speech, just answer the question. And whatever you do, there's something you're going to want to do because you're such a fine person. You're going to want to say the policeman came out and gave you a ticket. But the judge has instructed us, because it is the law, that whether you get a ticket or not is not admissible into evidence. So don't volunteer that, just answer the question. The lawyer on the other side said, Ms. So-and-so, what happened on the day of this dreadful accident? And she responded, well, I pulled up behind the car in front of me. I crawled under the seat next to me. I wasn't watching where I was going. I hit the car in front of me. I said, oh, I'm so very sorry. It was all my fault. I don't know how to apologize. And a policeman came out, and I told him I was so very sorry. And he immediately gave me a ticket. And I immediately told him I should get a ticket. And I thought, well, so much for your instructions, though. Well, up jumps the lady that allegedly got hurt. And it's my very, very strong view that she tended to exaggerate in a big way what happened to her. She said it was a horrible collision, a dastardly event. I hurt every place from my toes down, from my hair down to my toes. Even my hair hurt. I've never, ever gotten over it. Well, the jury went out, and we're going to lose, of course. And the jury found that my lady was at fault. She was negligent. It was the cause of the accident. And then found, relative to the plaintiff's damages, she suffered no injuries and got no money. And that is an illustration, a very pronounced one, of telling the truth and not playing games with the truth can be so important to the outcome of a case. Now, another thing these are hopefully not too random observations, but another thing that I think, this is a criticism really, the old guys can't help but criticize young guys. But I constantly worried that I needed to get a pulse from the jury, see what their reaction was to witnesses, see what they liked about the case, see what they didn't like about the case, and to be responsive to what I thought they were interested in. And I would work and work and work to try to be simple in the presentation of the case, because it's a teaching experience that you have to teach them why you were right. And so that was so important to me. Never would I, spend much time sitting there writing notes, reading notes, because I wanted to have eye contact and I wanted to hopefully convince them that I was all right. Today, I want to use a soft word, but I won't. It mortifies me and it frightens me the way trial lawyers, young trial lawyers, try to teach a jury, try to persuade a jury. If you walk in any courtroom today, you'll see lawyers that are very, very smart. They've graduated in the top 5% at Harvard, Yale, wherever. And they're trying to get too complicated in what they're telling the jury, who can't learn it in such a short time. But in addition to that, they all have their heads down, beating on a computer and putting up information on a computer. Whether I'm right or I'm wrong, how in the world do you persuade a jury so they can exercise their candor, so they can exercise their effort to tell the truth? If you've got the head down all the time and you're not standing in front of the box trying to teach and persuade. And I think it is that sort of, I can't help but every once in a while preach my thoughts. Another thing that you always have to remember, and the great, great trial lawyers that get big verdicts and have great victories, in my view, and of course this is the view perhaps of yesteryear, that they understand the jury. The first thing they will do when they get in the courtroom is voir dire the jury, and you all have had it happen. Question the jury and ask them questions. That's so important because you're learning what the thoughts and the characters are. You're not just trying to learn, where they go to church or where they work or how many kids they have. What you're trying to learn is what they're about, what's going to form the basis of their conclusions. And you realize that some of these people have had hard lives. Some of them can't pay the bills. As they said, I was, for many years, a corporate lawyer, a big oil company lawyer. And I had to judge, no matter what these people have been through, are they probably going to be fair with me? And you got to understand that some of them are having trouble paying the bills. The oil companies have dumbed them on their credit cards. And you've just got to understand that and find out those kind of things. And as you stand there and make the presentation and watch them and watch their reactions, then you want to know that you have a feel for what they're really about. I also will say this, you can almost say the same thing for judges. Judges certainly are more capable because they've had a legal education. But they too, they've been brought up in different areas. They've been brought up in different worlds. And whether they'll admit it, they're just like I am. There's some things I like and some things I don't like. So you want to be straight with a judge, that's for sure. and you want to understand what that judge is interested in. And if you know him very well, you want to know, what his likes and dislikes are, and be very, very careful. So I say this, I hope it's kind of an old guy preaching a little bit about what he's done with his life's work. Something that I've enjoyed immensely, something I learned, like all people that do pretty good at their professions. I learned it by hands-on and by actually doing it. I learned a lot of it in dealing with people, and not necessarily where Stockton Williams' dad taught me in law school. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure how long I've been talking. I can talk forever, but hopefully it kind of circled back to being short, concise, and whether it was anything you're going to take home and use, I hope you enjoyed it. I want to tell you, this has been really, really tough for me, because I'm used to looking at people that I know whether they like it or they don't like it, they think it stinks or it's good, whether I've lost their attention and I need to sing a few bars of Jeremiah was a bullfrog to bring them back. But you get older, you get your computer out and you learn. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Felt. There may be a question or two coming in. I know Clint said you might be able to touch just briefly on some of the legal advertising we see these days here in the state of Texas. Do you have a comment there?
Well, I have a comment about most anything, to tell you the truth. Yes, I do. As I said, I probably didn't say the words, but you learn to be a great trial lawyer. Whether I reach that pinnacle or not, I don't know. But you learn from experience. You learn from doing it a lot. You learn from your individual God-given talents. And to select a trial lawyer, at least, you need to know something about him. Is he honest? Is he fair? Has he had success? Do the judges like him? Do the other lawyers think he's good and great? And it's that bag of issues that I think should be the important factor in selecting a lawyer to try what's probably the only lawsuit in your life. And that does not go at all hand in hand with watching a TV ad that is perhaps put together with pretty music and pretty background by some advertising firm. So I'm a guy that find out about your guy, the lawyer. Don't do it because it was a pretty advertising. Now you got to understand that probably the first 35 years that I practiced law, advertising was not ethical and couldn't be on television or the newspapers or whatever. So my thoughts come from the thoughts of a guy that's been around a long time.
Okay. Well, we've got time for perhaps a couple of questions and a couple of brief answers, if you don't mind. Anybody have a question? I thought I saw Howard.
There's a question from Howard Freeman.
Howard has one on the chat.
So I go ahead.
Hello.
Now?
Go, Howard.
Okay, well, thank you for being here and for your presentation. My question was, have you seen over the years any change in the percentage of cases going to trial versus settlements, either pre-trial or during trial, based on what you see from a jury and their reaction?
Sure. The answer to that is it's been an immense change in the number of cases going to trial. When I was first learning, I would get a docket of, maybe I handled a docket of 100 cases, and they were all little cases. But I was going to trial someplace every week. I once tried 3 small cases in 1 week. Today, for a lot of reasons, I'll leave it at that, very, very few cases actually go to trial. And that's one reason you better look into who your trial lawyer is, because there are a lot of, quote, trial lawyers, close quote, that don't try anything. And that experience is everything. So you are correct. difference is immense.
Okay.
Thank
Other
you.
question?
I have a question.
David
It's Bill
Rittenhouse,
Tucker.
one?
I have a question. It's Bill Tucker.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
I would like to know your thoughts about the tort claims law and whether there would ever be a chance that in order to stop frivolous lawsuits that you would go to a loser pays system where if you bring a lawsuit and you lose it, you got to pay the plaintiff. You got to pay the defender for all of his expenses. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to try to be, I'm going to try to give you an answer that answers your question and doesn't sound like a dodge. There are lawsuits that are filed that are frivolous, no question about it. Anybody can file a lawsuit if they can afford to go to the courthouse and pay the court costs. Now, I don't know what it is today, maybe $100. And if it's frivolous, that's a bad thing. But on the other hand, I believe that people should have access to the jury, to a jury, to a trial. And if you are a person who needs to have justice done and the courts to sort out whether you're right or wrong, you shouldn't have to fear that if you lost, and just because you lost does not mean it's not a legitimate lawsuit, that you're going to get stuck a lot of money for a bunch of lawyers' fees. So there's two sides to that. And I just can't, my stomach's churning because I just don't want to take either side.
Okay, and I think we had one more question from David Rittenhouse.
Yes, I'm concerned about the increased use of arbitration in what I would say are frivolous contracts. Anytime you sign anything anymore, for any service, there's an arbitration clause, it seems, in there. And I actually think arbitration is generally good for minor issues, but I have a great concern that a company or an individual can hide behind gross negligence on their part or outright fraud on their part by having these arbitration clauses. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, this is a lawyer answer. Well, it's a lawyer preface. There are a lot of different arbitration clauses. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. But generally, I am against arbitration because it's an arbitration clause that is designed by a big company that's selling something, and they want to be protected from the trial, from the courthouse, and be protected from the jury system, which I believe in. And they're designed to keep you, even if you have been affected by a legal wrong, not to be able to access our justice system. And I'm big on the justice system. And to rather make you go to arbitration. And some of the clauses will even prescribe where you're going to go get the arbitrator. And if it's got some of that in there, you can bet that it's probably their arbitrator.
Okay, well, Mr. Felt, thank you very much for a very informative program. We do have a certificate of appreciation that we'll ask Clint to help us get this to you in the future, but thanks for being with us today.
Hey, it was my pleasure. I'm glad I ran into Clint, and I'm glad I was able to visit all of you. Thank each of you very, very much.
We'll encourage you to come back as a visitor. Clint, did you have a comment?
I just want to thank Harold again. And, I'm so glad you changed the topic because you're one of the best storytellers in the world. And I said, how in the world is he going to tell stories about legal ethics? But you changed the topic, and I think everybody got to see why you were such a successful trial lawyer. And thanks for coming today, Harold.
Thanks, man.
We do thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to move into families in Rotary. Stephanie Miller.
Yes, how are y'all? Just want to thank George Eichner for his music on Monday. I so enjoyed listening to it online, so thank you so much. Also, if you read Charlie's email, Bill Crumrine has lung cancer and is now on hospice care, so keep him and his wife Pam in your prayers.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Rotary projects, the golf tournament is scheduled for June the 15th. Jeff Harris, do you have a comment?
We are up to 88 players now. So we are looking forward to that. We are going to be at Comanche Trace. Christy, we've had a couple of things mailed in. I don't know if you've checked the mail or not, but if you do, if you get some registrants, if you could let me know, please, that would be awesome. So I can get the alpha list. But June the 15th, 11 o'clock over at Comanche Trace is when the registration will start. We are talking about, we are going to be able to have lunch. So we'll have lunch and then we'll have a shotgun start at 1 o'clock. Then we finish and we'll have hors d'oeuvres and scoring after play.
All right, very well. Next project is our food bank project update, and that takes place tomorrow. We are purchasing food from HEB. Ashley Home Stores is providing a truck. Now, HEB has asked that we not be there to load the truck. They will load the truck, but they said for health purposes, they don't want us there in their warehouse or don't want us there to help load the truck. So we have no option there, but we will purchase the food from HEB. Then we'll make our first stop at the Hill Country Veterans Center at 11 o'clock. I know Jimmy and Becky Hutto will be there to help direct that. We've got a few other volunteers that have stepped up to the plate. We have Roy Thompson, of course, Jimmy and Becky Hutto, Phyllis Ricks, Delane Siegerman, and Doug Winery will be working with us on the distribution portion tomorrow. If we still have room for additional volunteers, because not all these individuals will be here the entire time tomorrow. But we'll be at Hill Country Veterans Center at 11. We'll be at St. Vincent's de Paul at 11:30. The Hill Country Crisis Center at 12:15. CAM at 1 o'clock. And Mustard Seed and the Doyle Center will both be unloaded at the Mount Wesley Community Center at 610 Methodist Encampment at 2 o'clock. We do need additional volunteers. If you'll call and let me know your availability, we'd be glad to have you tomorrow. Do we have questions on our food bank project?
Charlie, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Just want to say thank you for doing that. And also just wanted to let everybody know our food bank money fund went over 50,000. So we are excited. And what you guys are doing is just super.
Good.
Thank you.
You bet, Judy. Thank you.
And I'll be there tomorrow too. So
okay, we'll put your name on the list also. Of course, this is a project of our district grant program, and so we do appreciate that the opportunity to work with the district on that grant process. We will be submitting the receipts, and we'll have photos to show that we did have sweat equity involved. Also, want to remind everybody of the mayor and city manager's prayer vigil at noon tomorrow. And I believe in honor of our 2020 high school graduates, the Tybee Fight Song is being played each day at noon through the City Hall bell system. And then tomorrow at the conclusion of the prayer vigil, George Eichner will play taps. So George, thank you for the many contributions you made. Do we have other announcements?
Charlie, yes, I need to back up a little bit to the families. I lost my mother on Monday.
Ooh.
And we'll have funeral services.
Wayne, is that you?
Yes, Wayne.
Okay, well, you have our deepest condolences. We'll be thinking about you and keep you in our thoughts and prayers in the future, Wayne. Thank you for making us aware. Any other announcements? If you haven't paid your dues, it's been a little harder to collect since we're not seeing each other one-on-one, but please do so if you've got outstanding dues. Now, next week's program, in fact, for the next few weeks, Julius Niehofer will be providing next week's program talking about Kerrville's earliest founding families. That's on June the 3rd. On June the 10th, Mark Betancourt will talk about protesting property tax valuation increases. That should be an interesting program. On June the 17th, Stephen King, the legendary King Texas Smokehouse Comes to Hunt, will be our program. Now, be sure and mark your calendars for June 23rd. We'll have our club picnic, which will take place at the Dietert Center again on June the 23rd. We'll get back to you with details on that. On June the 24th, I'll provide the year in review, and we'll install our new officers and new board members. And then on July the 1st, Tammy Pratt officially becomes our club president. She will have the program that day, and we'll be talking about her goals for the next year. So we've got some interesting meetings for the month of June. Anybody have anything else for the good of the cause today? If not, please join me in the four-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better relationships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? All right. Thank you very much. Have a productive week. We are adjourned.
Thanks.
Good meeting. Good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.